On July 24, 2011, hundreds of gay and lesbian couples throughout the state of New York married in front of family and friends. 1 month earlier, Governor Cuomo had signed the marriage equality bill into law. Victory for same-sex marriage supporters was the joyous end of a long and contentious struggle that less than 2 years earlier had suffered a crushing setback when the same bill was voted down in the state Senate.
No one in New York State should ever forget the betrayal that happened in Albany on our right to be married.
Not everybody was an honest broker. Mistakes were made. I made mistakes. Groups made mistakes.
Shame! Shame!
It was a very sad and tough time, and personally, it was a very difficult time for me.
Going into the vote last time, I was very clear we were going to lose. So there were some people who I think thought we actually had the votes, so that I think was very difficult for them.
None of us are where we want to be tonight. We would be lying if we said we weren't sad, and we weren't disappointed, and we weren't outraged.
We thought we had till 2010 to organize for the vote, but Governor Patterson put it on special, extraordinary calendars. So we were sort of marched into having the vote happen in 2009.
We were hearing directly from legislators and their staff saying things like, you know, you don't really have to worry about the gays, all they do is fight with each other.
So people did a frank analysis, an honest analysis, and developed a much smarter, more strategic plan for 2010 and 2011.
The goal was to take out some marriage no votes in the 2010 elections and replace them with marriage yes votes. And we succeeded. We got rid of some of those who voted no and replaced them with pro-equality candidates. But in the process, of course, the leadership changed in the Senate from Democratic to Republican, which created a different set of challenges.
58% of New Yorkers support the freedom to marry. The challenge has been to make those voices heard in Albany and to thread through the sometimes dysfunctional systems in the legislature, particularly in the state Senate.
While the 2010 elections brought in a Republican state Senate, they also swept in Governor Andrew Cuomo, who had campaigned on reforming Albany and passing marriage equality. In March of 2011, he asked equality advocates to meet with him.
He called LGBT leaders and advocates up for a strategy meeting and was there himself for over an hour, had his top people there, assigned his highest-ranking staff person to work with us.
So please, join me in supporting marriage equality, equality for all New Yorkers.
He said, I am going to use my political goodwill that I have in the state of New York to help make this happen.
The momentum was there. All the organizations were working together for the first time. We formed a coalition.
We knew it was important to send a message that we as a community were speaking with one voice, united in this fight together, and that's why we formed New Yorkers United for Marriage.
With a Republican Senate, we had to do a few things. One was we had to raise some Republican dollars to show Republican senators that Republicans supported this and would raise money to support those who supported equality. That was essential.
Legislators are so sensitive to their political future. If I take this vote, what's going to happen to my political career? So for a Republican, it is very helpful to know that there will be resources, financial resources, still there if they take this vote.
While several Republican donors were willing to commit to marriage equality, opposition to the bill was spearheaded by Reverend Ruben Diaz Sr., a Democratic state senator from the Bronx, who runs the New York Hispanic Clergy Organization and works closely with the National Organization for Marriage.
My concern is marriage between a man and a man is wrong. Marriage is an institution created by God, and to redefine marriage now is wrong.
We were definitely outspent, and a lot of our focus was on connecting folks with their legislators, and again, legislators simply didn't listen.
Think same-sex marriage doesn't affect your family? Legalizing gay marriage has consequences for kids.
And it wasn't that they didn't hear. I mean, some legislators have said, oh, we heard from We didn't hear that much from the supporters of traditional marriage. Yeah, that's not true. The same sort of, overwhelming calls that were coming in 2009 were coming in now.
We were all over the state. Our opposition was not all over the state. They were inside the Capitol. They played the lobbying game. They were there in the halls. They were there talking to senators behind closed doors, rather effectively, I would say, rather effectively. But they were not in the street. We were all over the street.
Marriage equality for gay and lesbian New Yorkers?
These folks came out of a full-time job and stood on corners in key districts for hours getting postcards signed, stopping constituents, and basically pleading our case with them. Educating right there on the spot. We had flash calls going on where our volunteers had a cell phone. They would call the senator from that district, and folks would leave a message. We had phone banking, door-to-door petitioning going on.
From Buffalo to Rochester, out on Long Island, Troy, upstate, downstate. We engaged people, we talked to them, and we saw the energy and we saw the passion on our side.
No senator I asked to meet with said no. Everyone sat down with me just to be honest about who you are and what your life is like. And when these senators sit down with you and they talk to you and they hear about my partner and my father and my partner's dad and our families, it's hard to stay stuck in the rhetoric.
I also saw the light come on in some of their eyes as they changed their position. And that, to me, was the most remarkable.
You talk to any of the senators that switched their vote from no 2 years ago to yes, they will all say what a difference 2 years makes in the number of constituent contacts we receive, by email, by phones, the people stopping them on the streets.
On June 13, 2011, 3 Democratic state senators publicly announced they would switch their vote from no to yes on marriage equality.
6,015 people had weighed in on this issue, and in the end, 4,839 people wanted me to vote yes. So in the end, that is my vote.
It was a tremendous victory and really gave us a lot of momentum when the 3 Democrats came forward and said that they were going to vote yes, and they publicly said they were going to vote yes.
We were at 29 then with a magic number of 32, but the hard work was still in front of us, which was getting 3 or 4 Republicans to say yes, and more importantly, getting a vote out of a Republican conference.
Michael?
Governor, would you be announcing today your decision on whether to put a bill in or not?
We're going to have a meeting. We're actually overtime on the meeting. We're going to have a meeting right after this, Michael, and we're going to discuss that topic. The group will make a decision, and then I'm sure we'll make that decision public.
I was actually in the meeting. We sat down, and the governor asked us all point blank what we wanted to do, if we felt that the time was right to push the bill forward. And we all, of course, said yes. And then he asked us to just wait a few minutes, and then Senator Alisi came in the room and let us all know that he was, in fact, going to come out in support and wanted our help standing with the press.
I am Jim Alisi. I'm a Republican. I was born that way.
I can't tell you the elation that came over me at that point, because I had always known in my heart that it was a bipartisan issue. And here he was.
I give you my vote. Thank you.
Soon after, Senator Roy McDonald came forward and said yes on the Republican side. Now, there were 2 publicly acknowledged Republicans saying that they would vote yes, and we needed another one to win, and even better, 2, so that no one would be the one vote to make it happen.
I love New York. I love New York. I love New York. I love New York.
The momentum just built. But then I have to say that there was a lull in that momentum as the week went by and no vote came. No one wanted to be the 32nd vote. We were literally back to back in the hall, and you couldn't walk down the hall. There was no space there. It was very tense.
Now we are looking, obviously, for the remaining votes on the Republican side, and apparently the discussion is there. From what I understand, there were about 4 hours that they spent yesterday trying to figure out what to do.
The middle of the week was tense, I'll give you that. I had anxiety. I was nervous.
And at this point, we're not entirely convinced we have enough votes, but I still think we do. To be out there on such a controversial issue and then not have the issue come to the floor for a vote is, it's not a disaster, but it's really not a good thing.
We knew that time was not our friend, and that the longer things waited, the more things could potentially go wrong. Because we were really worried about the opposition, the protests, the pressures that were being put on the senators from all kinds of opposition.
We believe that the same-sex marriage bill is in defiance of a fundamental fact of human society established by the Creator and Redeemer.
I think it's important to let them know that there are also people of faith here that believe in equality for all.
As the Republican conference met to discuss adding religious exemptions to protect religious institutions from having to serve same-sex couples, tensions mounted in the hallways of the Capitol on both sides of the issue.
We are not asking to get married into a church that does not want us. So it's really not an issue. And it's just a delay tactic to delay the vote to come to the floor.
Religious exemptions is not strong enough, and I'm lobbying the senators that are wavering to vote no on the bill.
Marriage between two persons of the same sex is wrong. To get some exemption doesn't make it right.
We're telling the religious folks, whatever you want to do in your church, that's your business. It has nothing to do with civil rights, my human rights.
We don't know. We don't know when there's going to be a vote. It's really very, very close.
The purpose was to ensure religious exemptions.
That there are protections in this bill for church and religious organizations.
On a personal note, I have, as many people are aware, certainly struggled over this issue.
Who am I to say that someone does not have the same rights that I have with my wife, who I love? I vote in the affirmative, Mr. President.
I vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Ayes 33, nays 29.
It was just like a wave of cheering, very exhilarating. Made the last 13 years really worth it.
Democracy works when the people speak, and the people spoke in volumes over these past few months, and this legislature responded this week to their...
This is the first time a Republican-led legislative chamber has voted in support of the freedom to marry, with Republicans providing the margin of victory. This is a cause and a campaign in New York that was supported by business leaders as well as labor leaders, Republicans as well as Democrats and independents, by young people working those phone banks, and by older people telling their stories and embracing it.
But the governor wanted the bill to pass before the 11 o'clock news. They locked the chamber and we passed it. No more talking. No more, this is it. It was a dictatorship ruled by Governor Cuomo. Even though the law has passed, it's not over yet. It's not over yet.
The legislature has voted. This is a creation of the legislature. It can be done away with by the legislature. So I think that the political class views this as a done deal. And I think, again, as we're seeing in Iowa and New Hampshire, that's not correct.
Our opponents have pledged to raise $2 million to take on these legislators that have stood up for love and equality. And they are all up for election. Just a little over a year away in November 2012. So we have to make sure that we stand by those who stand by us.
We were successful in New York. So yes, we'll talk about taking this model and bringing it to another state. And in fact, last Friday, Governor O'Malley was in Annapolis to announce his strong support for a marriage bill. And he talked about what happened in New York. He talked about the broad coalition.
In the aftermath of the New York victory, we testified in Congress at the first ever hearing on repealing the so-called Defense of Marriage Act and passing the Respect for Marriage Act to undo this federal discrimination. In 2011, we now have 6 states, 35 million people living in states where gay people can marry. We have more than 100,000 married couples with their kids, their loved ones, their families. And we have the living proof that ending marriage discrimination helps families and, contrary to the constant scare tactic of the right wing, hurts no one.